Tonya Hofmann's fabulous. Tonya Hofmann's fabulous. Tonya Hofmann's fabulous, fabulous TV show. Tonya.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited that you're back on the Tonya Hofmann's fabulous TV show. I am Tonya Hofmann. I'm the CEO and founder of the Public Speakers Association. You can find out more about us at publicspeakers.com. And then if you want to book me to speak, then just simply look at my website. It's tonyahofmann.com, TonyahOfmann.com. Yes, my husband's family doesn't know how to spell their last name right. I'm so excited to have my guest today, Miss Debbie Elder. Yay! And we're going to hear from her in just a minute. Make sure you stick around to the end of the show. As you know, every one of my incredible guests gives such amazing free offers at the end. So you do not want to miss that. So I thought today we'd talk a little bit about the speaking world. How is it changed? What's different? How can you use it for your business? If you have your own business, I don't care if it's real estate, a cosmetic company you represent, whatever you're selling, you need to be speaking, period. There is nothing more effective for your business and your marketing budget than speaking. When I started realizing that, I had to get over my fears of speaking. You know, a lot of people think I was just always born this way. No, I had to learn. I had to get out of my way. I had to push back the fears. And once I realized it was just about me being me, and I didn't have to pretend to be this perfect doll up on stage, you know, I could just be who I am. Things started to explode. I just got off the phone with a lovely lady, and she's like, I'm just too scared because I might mess up. I'm like, nobody knows you're messing up on stage, right? You're the only one who knows what you're going to say, okay? So don't worry about it. Even if you're using a PowerPoint and you come to a slide and you're like, I don't remember what that slide's for, or, oh, I completely forgot to talk about that. Who cares? Nobody cares. They just want to hear you. They want to know how you can help them. How can you help them change their life, their world, to make it a better place? That's what they're asking. And that's why I brought Debbie in today. Oh my gosh. So Debbie is one of my directors in the Houston market for the Public Speakers Association. But beyond that, she has a list of things that she's accomplished in her incredible life that every time that I'm with her, I'm just like, what are you doing now? Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So how you doing, Debbie?
Well, how are you? So welcome. I'm so happy to be on the show. This is my first time on internet TV. This is very exciting.
Ooh, that's always great. I can't believe it's your first time. You've been doing so much for so long.
I know. I just haven't really branched out into the television world yet. Lots of radio.
Nice, nice. So tell us, Debbie, a little bit about you. So how have you changed your world?
Well, as you know, Tonya, I am Canadian, so that's a big part of my heritage, and I've been involved in education for several years, and my big change to the world is educating just a little bit differently. So my background is my first job out of school was a police officer in Ottawa, Canada. That's our capital of the country. I then worked with young offenders, that's males between the ages of 12 and 18 who had committed very serious crimes. That was in Calgary, Alberta. I then did therapeutic foster care, where I worked with young women with severe behavior problems. I then moved to Ireland, so I left all that behind in Canada. When I moved to Houston, I had 2 daughters, and we were looking at some educational options. And I was able to take my learning from being in the criminal justice world, which is kind of a funny thing, but to convert that into an educational format that allows me to address kids where they are and to really motivate them to be the best they can be. And I use a lot of techniques that I, interestingly enough, used when I was training in corporate America here in the Houston area. So things like gratitude and setting and keeping and writing daily goals are all the things that I work even with my elementary students on, so that we develop success habits that are just natural when they step into their adult world.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow. And I'm sure Canadian weather is a little bit different than Houston weather, right?
Just a tad. Just a
That's amazing. I didn't even know you went to Ireland. That is incredible.
Oh, it's beautiful. I loved it.
Oh,
Loved
it seems cold and damp, is it?
You know, when we were there was a lot of rain. And so before I went, I made the decision to do whatever I needed to do in the rain. And I will tell you that once you make a decision like that in life, to just accept circumstances you can't change, you can really enjoy it. I loved it there. I will tell you the big move and the big change from Ireland to Texas is the rain. They truly have a soft Irish rain in Ireland. And it's not at all like that in Texas. When it rains here, they mean business.
We like to do things big, and big raindrops is it, you know?
Yes, very big. Lots of downfall. So, but yes, Ireland was beautiful and gorgeous, and it was very nice to learn about a different culture and how we were the same, yet how we were different. And I learned a lot that I was able to take and sort of put into my bag of tricks, if you will. As a speaker, you really have to be very diverse. You have to be able to have your signature talk, of course, and what you believe in, and be able to communicate that with your audience. But you really have to, in this day and age, when even as adults, we're so used to everything happening at such a quick pace on video, on television, commercials. As a speaker, you've got to be able to capture their audience and keep their interest level. And I have some pretty unique ways that I do that I'm hoping I can share with some of your viewing audience today.
Nice. Well, that leads right into our next section. So
Oh.
tell us how are you changing the world? Well, what kind of tips and techniques can you give us?
Well, first off, I want to tell your viewers that I built, with my business partner at the time, 15 schools, private schools that service grades 6 through 12 on zero marketing budget. And the way we did it was through speaking. So we would speak at free places like libraries, and we really sort of stepped into other people's green zones. If you're familiar with Blue Ocean Strategy, anytime you can step into somebody else's warm market, it doesn't cost you anything. You already have the ability to be there and have a person who's come in under some sort of testimonial, or you have an inferred endorsement when you're speaking in their space or at their invitation. So that worked really well. And then the other thing that I did when I spoke is I used a lot of props. And it really kept my speaking very interesting for my audience. It was very interactive. What I learned, and any of you out there that are speaking or trying to work with children or teens, if you can, one, make sure they attend any of the meetings you give. So I also have an after-school program in addition to my now elementary school. So anytime I speak, I invite parents to bring their children with them, and then I engage their children in the talk, because what I've learned is if you can get the young child engaged and excited about what you're bringing to the table, oh my gosh, they go home and they say to their parents, well, can I please go to that school? I want to be hanging out with that lady. She's so much fun. And you get them up on stage and involved in interacting, and it really makes a difference. I use a lot of magic when I speak, and that seems to excite even the older adults in the room, which when I first was talking to a friend of mine about, she's actually a member of the Public Speakers Association, Dr. Cody, she and I would discuss different speaking strategies when she started to speak. And I said, you've got to use some of these props. And she goes, Debbie, that's really childish. That just really seems like this is not my professional audience. And I went, okay, you do what you need to do. I said, but I can tell you the fastest way to get an audience to be with you, feel with you, and get to know you is to use these what appears to be very silly props. Well, guess who's using props now when she speaks and wowing her audience and having lots of fun doing it. So if you're not using props and engaging your audience in your speaking, I encourage you to do that and take your talk to the next level.
And it's interesting because I even see that even in small venues, if someone has a Cub Scout troop or something, interacting, most kids, and I think this really goes to most adults, they feel invisible. They feel like people don't see them. So when you take that little bit of effort and you call somebody out, suddenly they're right on stage. They're in front of everybody.
Well, and the other thing, too, that I've noticed in speaking to adults is it's been a long time since we've been in school. So we're not used to sitting for long periods of time and absorbing a lot of information, unlike a high school student may be. So when you're speaking, one of the things that I do a lot especially if I'm trying to partake information to my audience, is I give them a fill in the blank of my talk so that they have notes they can take with them, but I keep them active with me in the room as they're filling out, and I will underline either on my Prezi, my PowerPoint, or I'll draw attention to words that I want them to write in the blanks, and that keeps them with me. I also will get them to vocalize. I don't let them sleep in my room. I make sure that I'm asking them, and can you give me an amen? Can you give me an I? How can raise their hand? Stand up and stretch. We're doing a lot of movement so that their blood is moving, that they're staying active, they're getting lots of oxygen and breath, and they're having fun, because what I have learned is they don't care what you know if they don't think you care about them. And so it's really important. The other technique that I've learned and I found to be very, very valuable, Tonya, is to get to know your people before you get up on stage. Do whatever you need to do to know your room. Maybe that's some research before you arrive to speak, talking to the presenter or the sponsor that's bringing you in. One of the things I did when I was doing the sort of circuit and speaking to a lot of educators and parents is I had a chart, very simple chart at the back of the room, and stickers, and I simply asked them to identify certain traits about themselves so I knew who my audience was when I was speaking. So you're talking to, 75 people in a room. I can look back at a chart and very quickly I know 95% of my audience has a child between the ages of 6 and 10. Well, guess where I'm going to draw my stories from so that I can connect with them. I'm very aware of the scatter, so I can pull a teenage story in, an infant story in, but I know the majority of people are dealing with elementary and middle school, for an example. So it really gives you an opportunity to connect very quickly, and any good polished speaker has a whole kit of ideas and stories so they can, again, you want to be able to move with your room and keep it current with them so that, and don't be afraid to take questions. One of the things when I was being trained professionally to speak is we were told to never take questions. Well, those that know me know I never follow the rules. So first I'm out, I'm taking questions like I think I know all the answers. But I never lost control of my room because I had the confidence and the expertise, and I was okay with saying, you know what? I've never had that question before. That is a fantastic question. So now you validate the person and you give them permission to give you time to find the correct answer, because that's what an expert would do. An expert wouldn't fudge it in front of a room. They would own what they don't know and get the answer and appreciate the person for expanding their knowledge. So I think it's really good to allow your people, and also if you're doing any kind of marketing at all, you want to know what questions they're asking. It's much easier than trying to figure out what your clientele need or want. Allow them to ask you. Give them time to participate.
And I know, one of the biggest mistakes that I see anybody do from stage or in front of any group is really not asking any questions, not finding out who are they actually talking to. I had a person come in and 95% of the room were entrepreneurs, and he was talking to everybody about their 401k plan and their, things that they should have as an employee. And I'm like, who is he talking to? None of those people are here, and and vice versa is people are. I had a big event that I went to, and the guy said some jokes. You gotta always be careful about jokes. You gotta make sure it's to the right audience. And basically the jokes were very, not really nice towards women. And he had women getting up, and the person who was putting on the event, his next event, hardly any women came to it.
Yeah. Wow.
So even as someone who's putting on an event, you have to know who's on stage and what are they doing.
Exactly. The other thing that I do a lot is I do partnering. So I'll put out something, maybe I'm trying to teach a concept, or I'm wanting them to, maybe we're working on networking and how's the best way to network? Well, let's do it. My big thing when I speak is that I promise my audience, when you leave, you will have implementable strategies you can use tonight. Because I'm busy, you're busy, they're busy, we're all busy. And if I don't have time to come sit and listen to a bunch of theory at my age. I know the theory. It's how do I implement the knowledge that you have, and how do you fast track me? How do I bootstrap on your knowledge and make things in my world happen faster, better, more streamlined? And so being able to give tangible pieces of information and things they can actually do, and then motivating them to take the next step. As great speakers, we are always trying to get our audience to go ahead and push through to the next level. So what are the questions they're asking? What are they doing to ensure they are becoming the expert in their field? And I think that's really important. I was listening to a speaker not too long ago talking about the importance of questions and being the expert in your field, and saying, you know, for example, Eskimos, or whatever they're now called, I don't know what the politically correct word is, but have over 100 words that describe snow. Texans, we have one word that describes snow. So if I go up to the Arctic and I'm dealing with an Eskimo, he has a huge advantage on me. He can tell me this kind of snow is good for building igloos, and this snow is good for your dogs, and this snow is good for eating. And it's all snow to me. But if he comes down to my world, I'm an expert here. So being able to improve on your expertise and your knowledge, and then be able to make it relatable to what you're doing, can really make a difference in any of your businesses, and really comes across when you're speaking. I oftentimes, before I would speak on a certain subject, would do a lot of research so that I could answer those questions that might come in. And sometimes I never got one question, but you know what? Walking up on stage knowing I was the expert in the room, I had put the time in, made a huge difference into my ability to give those people what they paid for, which is to hear from an expert. You've got to be that, and you've got to feel it in your heart, or you don't deliver.
Well,
So
and
I'm sorry.
no, that's all right. I was just going to say, you know, I do a lot of interactive type of, you know, activities, and depending on, you know, if I'm in a networking realm, how to network better. Well, you got to actually get them networking and connecting and talking.
Right.
So many people that get in front think that it's a talking head, that they have to be a teacher talking at them, versus letting them experience you leading them. You know, I was just in California, and everybody that was on stage for 2 days talked at the audience, just wah, 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 wah. And it was very heavy, and it was a very, it was a lot of emotions that was being brought up with these people in their presentations. And I thought, I have got to lighten this crowd up. And so I completely changed my presentation, because I wasn't going to do anything interactive, because it's not really what the person wanted. But I could not get up on stage and let everyone just sit there again. And people were thanking me. They were like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. And it just lifted even though I stood most of my presentation not saying a word, because they were interacting and doing my little exercise. It's just so much more fun.
Well, and so many of us learn by doing. So we need to be able to do, you know, that's when we tell stories when we speak, because that's what they remember. They're sticky. Well, doing is very, very sticky, and they were going to remember. And then the other thing for learning, being an educator, is there's 3 things that you need, right? You need frequency, duration, and intensity. The way you get that intensity is through your emotions. They're going to remember the crazy story that their neighbor told them when they were doing because it struck a chord with them emotionally. And I think you're right. Anything you can do like that. And I love the fact that you made mention about when you're at an event and you're one of several speakers, it's very common for us to not participate when the other speakers are on. Where we go and we think what we have to do is so important, we're busy, and we're on our computers. Stop that. You need to listen. You need to read the audience. You need to find out what's working, what's not working, just like you did. So when you get on stage, you can use all that information. And I've been in a room and changed, just like you have, changed my entire presentation before I got up on stage, because I watched the response of the audience to a speaker ahead of me. So
exactly. And don't get so stuck with, you know, the shoulds and what you know, you have to feel the moment. And a lot of the decisions you make, you know, you're just kind of going with. You know, I do lots of different interactive type of events, and I may be in front of a brand new crowd that I really don't have any idea if they're going to react well to it or not. You know, a lot of my interactions are kind of touchy-feely type of things. You know, you're kind of getting, you know, excited and talking to each other and kind of digging in a little deep on who you are. And I went to a whole group, and I thought it was going to be all women, and it was 99% men that were police officers and firemen.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea if they're going to even do this exercise. And so I had to tweak it a little bit, but we had a blast, but it could have gone wrong, right? They could have sat there, and there was a couple guys who were like, I'm not doing that, you know, and you were okay with that. because there's always going to be somebody.
One of the things I used to speak, I trained early childhood educators for a couple of years. So I traveled the country and did training for a full day. Now, you got to understand, this is Saturday morning. We started at 8, we finished at 3. And I could count typically on one hand how many people out of maybe 1,500 who wanted to be in the room that day. It's their Saturday. Typically, they weren't getting paid for it, but it was mandatory training. So we had to edutain our audience. And one of the things that I did that has really served me well was I would always go in and talk to the last row, because the people in the last row really didn't want to be there. And they're telling you with everything they got, they don't want to be there. And I would do things like I would lean over before I got up on stage and say, hey, I'm Debbie, I'm the speaker today. If at any time you can't hear me, you can't see me, or if I'm not servicing your needs, will you just stand up and raise your arm and get my attention? And I just brought them into my team, and it made all the difference. And the other thing I did, in teachers out there, I'm telling you, I love teachers. I'm a teacher, but you guys don't listen very well in a room, chatting all the time. So I would use positioning just like I do in a classroom, just like I would teach my teachers. And I would hop off the stage and I would go over. And if there was some women who maybe I couldn't get back after a group exercise, or just we're talking about who knows what, and all I had to do was stand there. And by proximity, I was able to bring them back into the group again. So just fun stuff like that, that really you never want to embarrass anybody that you're speaking to. You want to ensure that you maintain not only their integrity, but your own. And so being able to be professional and use all of those sort of arrows in your quiver, if you will, can really set you apart from the competition out there when you're on the speaking circuit.
And you got to remember that you are in command. If you don't stay in command of your room and your audience, they will overtake you. And I have seen it happen where people are like, if you've got any questions, just ask me anytime. And then the whole thing is, especially is usually ends up being one person in the audience that wants to have the show about them, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, you got to, learn to play that. And anyone that's out there like, oh, I'm really scared. It's just learning. It's about figuring out how to stay in control of the environment.
The other thing that I did often when you're speaking for long periods of time, and if you happen to be giving breaks, and that's one thing I ran across with new speakers that I'm coaching. They're like, well, Deb, I give a break and they don't come back, or they like get on their phones and I can't give them back in. I said, oh, the fastest way to fix that, if you truly have good content, the fastest way to fix that is to be honest and true to the clock. So I would say to people as I'm getting off stage, everybody, it's 11 o'clock. I am going to start speaking at 11:20. So I'm not going to tell them what they're going to do. I am not going to go find grown men and women in the hallways and bring them back into the meeting room. But I am going to hop back on that stage at 11:20 and I'm going. And if you want the information I have to give, and I know you do, you'll be back in your seat quiet and ready to go at 11:20. And that served me so well. And I can tell you, especially if you're doing 2 and 3 day events, the first time they might test you a little bit and then they realize, oh my gosh, she is up on that stage when she says she will be. It makes all the difference in the world.
Exactly. I know with the public speakers conference that we put on this year, I always look at how can I improve? So I'm always asking people, what did you expect? What wasn't there? What'd you love? Find out everything and be open to it, right? And one of the things was, well, it'd be great if we knew that the time was coming up. I'm like, well, don't you have a watch? It's just funny, but most people don't even have watches anymore.
No.
And so people are like, well, just start a music. And then the music cues everyone to come back and sit down. And so you just start learning these little things, depending on if you're the event person putting on an event or if you're a speaker, things that will help kind of hone things in. But you do have to be on time because people get really upset if you go long.
My gosh. Yes.
And if you're a speaker and you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, I don't care how much it is, and then they give you the 5-minute, 2-minute, and then get off stage, you better honor that. There is nothing worse than continuing and making the person seem like the bad guy for getting you off the stage.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I had that happen to an event, and I was actually thinking about she was an amazing woman, had built this huge company. She would not get off stage. She wasn't finished with her PowerPoint, and she was going to finish her PowerPoint. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And then that pushed everybody else's presentations back. It just makes a mess out of everything.
No, it does. And you start watching the audience is getting uncomfortable, because if you are uncomfortable on stage, or the people, again, in the management position are uncomfortable, that is the fastest way to make your whole audience restless, they're starting to question whether or not they're at an honorable event. So really, yeah, it's
crazy.
right.
And then if you were trying to make anything happen, it did not happen for her afterwards. Nobody approached her because everyone was really excited, and then afterwards it just makes it, people like following rules and they like see people following rules. So don't make people feel uncomfortable about that.
Or anything, right? It's a very good word. You don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. Really,
So
when I used to speak, and when I do speak, I consider that room to be like my home. And I am welcoming everyone who comes in to hear me talk as if they're coming into my home. And I think that, like I said earlier, going around and talking to people, and I know you're excellent at it, because once they think they know you, you've already made a connection. You've already built that rapport. That's their friend up on stage. They trust you. They want to hear what you have to say. They're nodding with you. They're giving that positive reinforcement and feedback that every speaker on the earth wants and needs desperately. Even when, so don't sit there solemn faced in the audience. Just smile and nod. It makes us all feel so much better.
Exactly. Now, I know you're going to give us something fabulous away today. What are you giving?
Well, what I'm giving to your audience is a 30-minute complimentary consultation. Like I said, have worked with, lots and lots of people, helping them to build their business through speaking. And as I mentioned, I have a lot of experience doing that, building my schools. And I love to speak. I love to train others to speak. And so that's what I'm offering today. You can email me at Debbie, Debbie, at Set Them Up for Success. And that's set, S-E-T, them, T-H-E-M, up, U-P, for F-O-R, success, SUCCESS.com. Or you can call me if you prefer, or text at 832-419-1455. And that's a 30-minute complimentary consultation. If you're like me and you always want to get the best bang for your buck, email me your questions, your areas of concern ahead of time so we can have a very productive 30-minute consultation.
Wow, that is incredible. I'm going to take you up on that too.
Love that.
Oh my gosh. So definitely get a hold of Debbie. Debbie at setthemupforsuccess.com.
Mm-hmm.
Do it today so you don't forget. And then even if it's like 6 months from airing, you're still honoring that. So just whenever you're watching this, just take advantage of it. Oh my gosh, what an incredible offer. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I'll have to have you back on. I know, would love to have some insights to children. I'm sure there's a few, people listening that would like to have some insights on how to help their kids not be those delinquents that you helped.
Well, that is my passion. I would love to be able to come back and talk on that. So whenever you have a time, you let me know. I'll be there.
Perfect. All right, everyone. So as you can see, we have constantly amazing people on my show. Love to have you on my show sometime. So go check out our website, publicspeakerswithanassociation.com. If you want information about the upcoming conference, go to publicspeakerswithanass.conference.com. It's in San Antonio, Texas. We're going to have margaritas and we're going to have some Mexican food. It's going to be fabulous. And it's a 3.5-day, 4-day event that you will not want to miss. It is going to be so much fun. So it's June 14th through the 17th in 2015. So thank y'all for showing up today, and come back and see us next time. Bye. Bye, Debbie.
Bye, Tonya. Thank